Thanks for tuning in to Tax Strategy Digest, where we explore the fascinating world of finance. Join us as we dive into the stories, insights, and experiences of experts, thought leaders, and everyday people who are making a difference in this field. Through engaging conversations and thought provoking discussions, we'll take a deep dive into the latest research, trends, and innovations shaping finance. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn something new on this journey here with us. Welcome to this episode of Tax Strategy Digest. Today, our guest is Mitch Underwood. Mitch focuses on helping individuals navigate their health insurance options in what is often seen as a very confusing, burdensome task with little to no good options available. Mitch, thanks for coming on the show today.
Hey, Paul. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Well, awesome, Mitch. For those who might not know you, what's your story?
Well, my story, man, it's a pretty humble beginning. I was born in Lexington, Kentucky. Grew up with a pretty blue collar background. I ran a small cleaning business with my father for a number of years. So I got a little taste of entrepreneurship there, but I mean, it was more of a side gig, honestly, through all my 20s and even first couple of years of my 30s, I was kind of roughing it. I was working two jobs, kind of living paycheck to paycheck. I did get an English degree at the University of Kentucky. So I mean, I went through college, but I kind of hit after college. I had plans to become a professor, and then I kind of ditched those plans for a few different reasons. So you might say I was a little bit aimless through my 20s in some respects, but needless to say, I came to a stopping point where things got a little bit rough for me. I kind of saw that the path ahead was not very clear, and that I probably needed to pivot and figure out something else to do with my life. So, um, kind of lo and behold, just kind of looking around and kind of digging deep, I sort of found an opportunity in insurance, health insurance, which is, like I said, kind of out of left field, given my background, sort of blue collar, went to school as an English major. Like I said, definitely kind of out of left field, but I saw it as an opportunity to help people. And to better my own livelihood, and I kind of ran with it, and lo and behold, here I am going into my third year, and it's been absolutely life changing. I feel that I'm finally kind of serving a purpose now, if you will.
Very cool. And so what has been sort of the most fulfilling or rewarding part of being able to help people?
Most fulfilling thing for me is realizing how difficult this space is for people. So, like, most people are used to getting health insurance through a job. So, when you go and you look as an individual, it is very difficult and it's very confusing. And, like, there's a lot of mistakes that people can and do often make when they're trying to find health insurance for themselves or just trying to navigate it. So, for me, the most fulfilling thing is really kind of bringing clarity to that space. And, when you have clients, give you that big genuine thank you so much for helping me with this. I would have had no idea what to do, or maybe I've walked through, more or less a claims process with someone, help them figure out, what's going on, why isn't something being billed correctly, and you've helped them save money or what have you. I mean, just you realize you're making a huge difference in someone's life financially, and both in terms of like how they're, I mean, their healthcare, right? It's important, getting the care that you need when you need it. So, I mean, it's serious stuff, and I mean, it definitely impacts families, and for me, that's kind of the most rewarding thing is knowing I'm making a genuine difference in their life.
Yeah, definitely. And are there some misconceptions? I really feel like there's a lot of different rumors that go around about obtaining your own insurance, your own health insurance.
Right.
So could you talk about some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest misconception that I run into is that, I mean, because people don't ever really think about it until they have to think about it, they kind of enter this space, I think, with the mindset that it's going to be the same. That they're good, it's going to be about the same. Either they can pay about the same or it's going to be the same quality of coverage. And they kind of walk out and they look and they're like, holy crap. Like, they realize now how much their employer was paying for their health insurance every month. They realize, okay, so wait a second, I was paying a really low subsidized rate for this plan. This plan was far more expensive. My employer was paying the majority of my health insurance. So it's way more expensive now. And then on top of it, the coverage is usually not nearly as good. And they don't realize too that it's different in every state. So like your options are different even from state to state. So I mean, really, I think it's like you're kind of just getting bushwhacked when you walk out into that health insurance space because you hope and you think that it'll be about the same. You may not know what you're getting yourself into, but you think you kind of go out assuming that you'll find something comparable. And many times that is not the case. And it's really ends up becoming a very, it holds people up sometimes. Sometimes people stay in a job just for the health insurance because they realize like, oh crap, I can't really find this kind of coverage again. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing I see is just kind of assuming or thinking that it will be about the same, and they find out almost always it's not.
That's really interesting. And I know that there's a lot of listeners who are likely going to be either A, transitioning from, a W-2 to or 1099 over
Sure,
to self-employed. So
sure.
could you talk about what they should know when they're starting to plan that exit and transition over to being self-employed?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think another thing too I see sometimes is people make those transitions because they're excited. Maybe you're starting your own business or what have you, and you're ready to go. But the health insurance is not to be neglected. I think a lot of people, I mean, on the one hand, you got the people who maybe say, well, no, I don't really go to the doctor very often, so I'm fine. I don't really need it. And then you have the other people that, like I said, maybe they walk into it sort of assuming, well, I'll just sign something up. It'll be about the same, and they don't realize that this stuff really does need some actual time and attention. You really do need to make this an integral part of your plan. So where you might be planning your exit strategy based on finances, different timelines and things of that nature. I think you should really get started on the health insurance alongside that, and say, okay, let's start looking at this. Let's start evaluating our options and making sure that everything is synced up properly so that number one, you don't have a gap in coverage. You're not going a month or two without coverage while you go, leave your job for this new venture. And then number two, that you're not making a rash decision and you're not just signing up the first thing that you see online or what have you. You really do need to kind of do your homework on this. And if you don't do your homework, reach out to someone who knows what they're doing, right? Or reach out to an advisor that can actually help walk you through your options and make sure that you're making the appropriate choice for yourself and your family. So for me, my biggest chunk of advice that I would give is like, don't neglect it. Don't just push it off. Don't leave it unresolved, and don't just go and sign up something willy nilly and think, okay, this should be fine, because for all you know, you've signed up something that will not help you when you need it, and that's the worst possible thing you can do.
Definitely. And so, are you seeing any large problems right now in for people who are self-employed in the health insurance space?
Yeah, yeah, no, all the time, man. I mean, I literally just spoke to someone the other day that says that they owe, $8,000 in taxes because they did their health insurance wrong. They went through the government, healthcare.gov marketplace. Your rates when you go through there are based on your projected household income for that year. So what happens, this is another thing people run into. They don't realize what the ramifications are for not getting this part right. So I mean, I've run into people who were self-employed that said they owed $20,000 in back taxes for a year, because what happens is they put in a number for their projected income. Now, whether they're doing this purposely or not, I mean, that's kind of neither here nor there. But say you put in, hey, well, I'll probably make 50 grand this year, and then I don't know, your business takes off, you end up making, over 100 grand. That's going to be a big problem when tax season rolls around. Because what happens is you're taking a subsidy from the government to, they're subsidizing your health plan instead of your employer. They're subsidizing the cost of your health plan to make it more affordable for you on a month to month basis. But if that's based on an incorrect number that you've put out there for your income, you've made far more money than you said you were going to make, well, you're going to pay that subsidy back. That's exactly what's going to happen. So if you took a huge subsidy, if you have a large family, for instance, and you took a huge subsidy because you wanted to make your plan more affordable month to month, and you thought, I don't know, for whatever reason, you could put in a lower number, that bites people all the time. Sometimes people just forget to update their income too. They don't know that you can update your income during the year. So even if it's an honest mistake and you realize during the course of the year, like, you know what, I'm doing a lot better than I thought I was going to do, you need to call in and make sure you update that figure. Um, and then simultaneously, people also sometimes think that's the only game in town, right? Okay, well, I'll just wait for open enrollment. I'll go through healthcare.gov, and they don't even know that there's still a whole world of private health insurance options available out there that may not have anything to do with your income. So if you're worried about that situation at all, you don't want to mess with it, you don't even like the idea maybe of, government sponsored insurance, you don't necessarily have to go that route either. It's just a lot of times people are kind of locked into this open enrollment mindset, like this is the only time I can do this. This is the only, the only show in town. And they just don't, they're just unaware of their options. So yeah, I mean, I see problems of all different sorts. That's just one of the biggest ones that I see.
It's really interesting, and I before I forget about this, I did want
Yeah.
to ask you because we met through LinkedIn. That's
Right.
how we got connected. How has social media and things like LinkedIn or other channels, how
Yeah.
has that affected your business and your day-to-day operations?
Oh, it's been a huge game changer, man. I mean, I started on LinkedIn. I think it was October of 2022, I want to say. That's when I started to kind of take it seriously. I probably didn't start posting consistently though until, January of last year. So and in that time span, I've really seen my business take off, and LinkedIn has been a big part of it. So I mean, whenever I talk to people, and I almost always ask them like, "Are you on LinkedIn now?" Because I want to know if they're on there because I want to connect with them, and I also just want to like share that with them that like, hey, this can be a big part of your business, because showing up to LinkedIn every day, whether it doesn't mean you have to post every day, but just showing up, being a part of that community, showing love to other people, whether that's just liking their post, reacting to it, commenting on it, wishing them well, what have you, just showing up and being a part of that space on a daily basis and contributing to it. Over time, it snowballs. Just like anything in business, it's going to snowball. You're going to start to generate more movement in the right direction. And yeah, it is definitely contributed to my business a lot. So oftentimes I wake up first thing in the morning, I'm probably creating content, commenting on people's posts. That's while I'm having my coffee, so that it absolutely has like changed my day in a big way.
I love it. And what is a one piece of advice you could give to somebody who's maybe just starting out, they don't know what direction they want to go in, kind of like yourself when you said
Sure.
in the past you didn't really know what you wanted to do and you kind of just fell into insurance. And now for them, if they're listening, it might not be insurance.
Sure.
It might be something completely different. But what's a piece of advice you could give them to help put them on the right path?
Well, I think that when it comes to that, you do have to dig deep, right? You have to look at yourself and kind of identify like, what is my self-worth? Do I feel like I am being, valued at what I'm doing right now, whether that's a job that maybe has a toxic environment or what have you. If you feel that you're not doing what you're meant to do, if you feel that you're spinning your wheels, you're not really making progress towards, your life goals, you need to take a hard look in the mirror and kind of, like I said, identify your self-worth, but at the same time, don't be afraid to step out and do something that's out of your comfort zone. For me, like I had never been in like sales or, like I said, insurance or anything like that. I had never done anything like that. Like I said, I had a very humble beginning. I worked a small cleaning business with my father. I worked in retail for a long time. Like I never did anything like this before. But sometimes you just have to step out of your comfort zone and try something new. Don't be afraid to do something that's completely different than what you've done before if you think there's good opportunity there and that you can make a real difference in the process. If you can align that opportunity to better yourself and your livelihood and your family's livelihood with making a real difference in the world, that's something worth at least taking a look at. Even if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world, right? I mean, people regret not doing things a lot more than they do actually doing things, right? Even if it doesn't work out, at least they can say, well, I tried. So that's kind of my advice is don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone and find a better opportunity, especially if you can help people in the process.
I love it. Did you ever have a mentor or anybody who guided you from, the when you were starting out, just learning a little bit more? Maybe it's even just in the insurance industry, or just in life in general.
I would say I never, I mean, I obviously I look as many people do, like to my father, for instance, for guidance. He taught me a lot, I would say, along the way. I think still the lessons he taught me, I think were very integral in kind of my development later on because I was always a hard worker, right? Working hard wasn't the problem, but at the same time, I knew that I was capable of more. My father, for perspective, he's in kind of a sales role himself, and that's kind of where he found his success. And so when I kind of saw insurance and was like, well, it's sales, but at the same time, I can make a real difference. That's kind of where it kind of clicked for me a little bit too. So like, I look back and say he is kind of my mentor. But at the same time, I also will say that, even being on LinkedIn, honestly, seeing what some of these other guys on LinkedIn are doing with their lives and with their business, that was motivating for me too, because I saw how much potential there was to really kind of blow this thing up, so to speak, right? So like even just seeing kind of some of that stuff on LinkedIn, kind of in my first year of business, and seeing how successful people were on there, and just what you can really do with like a brand strategy. That was almost like secondhand mentorship to me, was actually kind of seeing that. So yeah, like I said, I didn't have like a true mentor in that sense. But absolutely, there were definitely people that I looked up to that were pretty helpful and instrumental in me kind of like how I developed my own brand identity.
No, that's really cool. I I think it's really interesting to see how success kind of shapes people, and you can see it a lot through LinkedIn, and you can
Right.
see, different people who are successful in one way, another way. Oftentimes it's maybe family that they're posting on LinkedIn, and
Right.
for them that means, they're very successful because they have a
Right.
strong relationship with their wife, their kids, whoever it
Sure.
is. But for you, what does success look like for Mitch?
Well, man, for me, it's like I said, coming really kind of circling the wagons here, so to speak. So, I did like a lot of people did. I made a lot of mistakes, like some people do, where you go into college and you leave with a lot of debt, and you don't really have a clear path of paying that off. So for me, it really has been about kind of restructuring my life and restructuring even my finances. I was that guy too in my 20s that was not afraid to throw stuff on a credit card and just say, well, yeah, it's fine, we'll pay it off later. And then of course, over time, you're just kind of paying a balance each month. You're paying interest. So for me, it's really been about restructuring my life and really changing the course. So I mean, success for me in some ways is just kind of getting on level footing and making sure that I'm able to accomplish my goals. So I mean, that may mean quote unquote, I say retiring, but like for me, retirement, what that looks like to me in the future, for instance, is being able to work when I want. You know what I mean? I don't see myself getting out of this game just because I like helping people so much. But being able to have control over your schedule, have that financial freedom, that's really what success looks like to me, is really financial freedom. And the ability to help people as I see fit and to be able to be flexible in my own schedule. So if I can kind of more or less do what it is that I want to do, whether that's travel, whether that's take time off, but at the same time still be able to help serve people in the process and enjoy my life. That's what success looks like to me. Whereas that was not my life before. Before, like I mentioned, all those sort of mistakes I made, working two jobs, paycheck to paycheck, not really helping anyone, working, for a large corporation, for instance, just to kind of, get them by day. That's not, that wasn't success. But for me, having that financial security while being able to help people in the process and kind of having that lifestyle design, that's what that looks like to me. Absolutely.
I love it. So for anybody who's listening right now and maybe they're saying, "Hey, I need to talk to Mitch." Who exactly do you help, and how do you help them, and what does that process look like?
Okay. So yeah, as far as who I help, it is very, very strictly in that individual space. So I'm not like a broker that's going to do a large group policy for your company. I have guys that can help with that. So by all means, I'm still a resource in that regard. I have some guys that are great with that. But for me, I'm working with all individuals. So individuals, families, some small businesses. So if you're a really small business, especially like under 10 employees, maybe you're not at the point where you want to offer group insurance. Sometimes that's something I can work with too. But primarily, your self-employed individual, your business owner, your 1099 contractor. I've worked with like a lot of realtors, for instance. Anyone you can think of that has to have their own independent health insurance. That's really who I'm working with primarily. And what that process work looks like is basically a simple consultation where I'm going to talk to you about, what your goals are, what your needs are out of a health insurance plan, what you're looking for really. And then I'm going to basically assess based on your situation, the state you're in, what your budget is, et cetera, what might be a good fit for you. So at that point, then I would move to kind of recommending different options, and making sure that you're aware of all your options, because that's the biggest issue. One of the biggest issues I see is people, they go online, they Google, health insurance, and they're just, I mean, they're not getting the full picture. Not only are they not getting the full picture, but most of the time they're making the mistake of putting their phone number in, and they're getting their phones blown up, 20 times a day now by,
Right.
people trying to sell them insurance. So for me, it's, that's kind of the process. It's really a very, client-centered process where we're going to talk about what matters to you and what's going to best protect you at the end of the day. Because that's what I want to make sure is that you're not making the mistake of just price shopping and trying to sign up the cheapest thing you can without knowing that maybe that doesn't fully cover you. Knowing those various different things that people, it's just easy to miss, right? It's fine print, it's insurance. You're not thinking about this stuff. So that's more or less the process and who I help, Paul. Absolutely.
Well, awesome. Mitch, one last question for you as we
Mhm.
start to wrap up. What is your why? Why do you do what you do?
Why I do what I do. So, for me, that is very much again kind of going back to kind of my humble beginnings, if you will. Just like I said, I got to a point really in my early 30s here in Houston where things got real tough for me. And, I don't, like I said, I'm not going to list everything out, but things got real tough, and I realized like I needed to turn things around. So for me, I mean, my why really is kind of built on that bit of pride that I had, right? That I was better than what I was, or that I'm meant to do more than this. That I serve a greater purpose than this. So my why really is kind of centered on, like I said, bettering myself, but at the same time, bettering the lives of everyone that I come into contact as much as I possibly can. So whether that's just, cheering them on or, like I said, helping, helping them save money or find better health insurance, or making sure that they don't, make that mistake of signing up something that's gonna burn them down the road. For me, making that difference in the world while being able to become that person I felt like I always was, like that's my why. For me, like I said, it's kind of that two-tiered kind of process where it's like, yes, I'm bettering myself, but it's not at the expense of others. To the contrary, it's actually with others. So that's it for me, man.
I love it. I love it. Well, if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
I would say hit me up on LinkedIn. Like I said, I'm there all the time. That's where I produce a lot of content. And I do have other contact information on there as well. But yeah, feel free, just check me out on LinkedIn send me a connection request. Feel free to chat me up. I'm absolutely happy to chat.
Perfect. Well, Mitch, thanks so much for hopping on here today. I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story with us, sharing a little bit about what you do and how you help others. And it's been a blast getting to talk to you. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it, brother.